Okay, so I think we'll do something different today and check out this photo that I came across of San Francisco from 1878. Luckily, it's a fairly high resolution, so we'll get to see some detail here. So let's just kind of jump in here and see what we're dealing with and really take our time and appreciate the evidence that was left behind for us. So first of all, we notice just how built out the city is, how clean it is, and the absence of people. Now, some people will say that's due to long exposure and that it was maybe in the morning or something of that nature, but judging by the sunlight and just the general, I just don't see any people. I don't think it's a super long exposure per se, and we don't see any blurring, we don't see any artifacts, we don't really see any evidence that it's a long exposure. It looks more like a sunny early afternoon, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not an expert on lighting, but I don't think that this is a super long exposure. And it's a panorama, so it's actually multiple frames stitched together, as you'll see as we progress further. But let's just try to stay in one section at a time here. I mean, right off the bat, we see right here, we see Tartarian architecture, possibly antiquitech right here, where my mouse pointer is. But over here, we just see it completely built out all the way back over here. Smaller buildings, but not tiny. Very clean, but not new. Not new construction necessarily. Here they're digging something out of the mud here. Here we see some writings here, possibly advertisement for who's digging this out. You know, just really simple tools. Here we see a horse and a wagon wheel. You know, here's possibly another horse here. You know, here's some antiquitech here. You know, what can I say? I mean, it's just, these are the kinds of photographs that you could stare at for hours. Just, I mean, here's more antiquitech here. You know, just perfectly clean. There's some more horses. There's another buggy. Moving through the image here, we just see more built out. This is 1879. 1879, possibly 1878. Regardless, you know, I mean, I would say the vast majority of these buildings that they don't exist due to various factors, including obviously the reset or the mini reset or the partial reset of 1906. Here we see the San Francisco Bay, there's Alcatraz, ships in the harbor. You know, I mean, this is a really good piece of evidence here. Just, they tell us that the city wasn't really built out, that it didn't really begin to be built out until 1849. So we're talking about, you know, what, 30 years? 30 years of horses and donkeys and simple tools. I mean, just look at the craftsmanship on some of these houses. So somebody's lying. You know, here we have the cable car track here. I mean, just immaculate infrastructure for 1878, 1879, supposedly. And let's zoom in here on this here. Look at this tower here. Possibly a cathedral or something. I mean, and the thing that's really baffling is that there isn't a lot of explanation. you go back to the archives, that there just isn't really a lot of explanation for some of these buildings, or you know, just the. I mean, it's just too much. It's just really too much. You know, we see stuff like this. It's just grand, ornate, little details here. You know, these vents here, these look modern. These look like the kinds of vents that we still have in 2021. You know, it's just, and then look how built out it is. I mean, and look how tall some of these towers are, and there's no records of some of these buildings. That's the unfortunate thing, I suppose, or it's the convenient, you know, plausible deniability here is that we don't. I mean, look at this one here. Zoom in a little bit more here. Look at this one here. Look at this giant building here. Look at this thing over here. And these are all conveniently destroyed over the decades. You know, I mean, I can understand some of these smaller buildings. You know, these may not be of any consequence here. But what about these? And what about this thing back here? It's just built to the rim. But everybody was busy mining gold in the Sierra Nevadas. But yeah, you could build all this. There was enough skilled labor readily available to build all this, and it just keeps going. We can progress further here. And here we see some antiquitech here in the foreground, slightly out of focus, but still recognizable as some type of energy receiver or transmitter. They'll call them a lightning rod, but I mean, what is a lightning rod really when you think about it? And did they have a way to harness the energy from the ionosphere and from the ether? Probably. Evidence suggests, at least. Here we see two grand spires, another spire, another mysterious tower here with a spire on top. I mean, it just keeps going. There's another one here. You know, if the purpose was to amass wealth and gold, then why would you waste so much time and energy and money and resources constructing such grand buildings? Even if these buildings are as old or as young as they say they are, why? Why do it? You know, here's some more antennae, antiquitech here. Unfortunately, it cuts off here. It doesn't go any further. Let's see what's beyond this point here, but we can see that it's still built out. This isn't where it ends. You know, that's the whole thing. But we can really zoom in wherever we want. I mean, what's this here? What's this exhaust? What's this emission here? What's this haze here? Yeah, that just factory smoke, you know, but still a little strange, you know. And like I said, you know, if this was a little bit better detail, we could see even more. There's some damage, some water damage here on the print, or the slide, or the negative. Not a negative, but they didn't have those back then. But anyways, the point is that there's a lot going on here in San Francisco in 1878. A lot of stuff going on. And just look how immaculate everything is here. And then what the hell is this? Here. Look at this dome here. Another spire. What's this long building here? There's another mysterious thing here. And we just see the same pattern here. It's just columns, you know, and arches, perfectly laid out streets, you know, just a perfect grid. But just look how dense it was, even back in 1878. Just completely packed. You know, feel free to pause, screenshot at any point in this video. I'm just kind of scanning around here. You know, I mean, the obvious things just kind of pop out, but, you know, like I said, there's so much that you could really notice if you were looking for it. And I do intend to try to find more photographs like this when I can go back to the libraries and go back to the archives. And, you know, I have another image I want to examine in this video. So I guess we'll just leave it at that for now. Like I said, I could really take this in my mind, but I don't know if there's words to express just how fascinating this really is for 1878. I mean, it's really a shame that there isn't more readily available images like this, and I'll find them. Like I said, I'm just getting started here with this channel, and hopefully we'll find an even better example of what this place looked like before even the 20th century. I mean, this is still the 19th century here. We're talking about San Francisco, 19th century. You know, and like I said, it goes on more, but it cuts off here. This is as much as I can get from this image, so let's zoom out. And we'll just leave it at that. We'll move on to the next image. Alright, so here we have another image. We have a map from the same year, 1878, and it's supposed to more or less kind of line up with what I showed, although from a different vantage point. Hard to say exactly where the previous photograph was taken, but what we see here is supposed to be more or less the same time period, more or less the same year, supposedly. Supposedly this is the same year as that photograph was taken. And we see some of the same buildings here. We see the double spire here on the church. We see some of the other spires. We see some of the dome. We even see what could have been producing some of that haze right here. We see some soot coming out of these smokestacks here. And then we see as it gets a little bit more into the country, which is now, you know, San Mateo County was, you know, this would be south of San Francisco here. So we see the train that would go south into Silicon Valley, or what we would call Silicon Valley now. And what's interesting about this illustration, this map of sorts, is we see that even in the low-lying, the rural areas, that they're already starting to build out there. This right here is still there in a way. This is the Roundhouse in Brisbane, which is just outside of San Francisco. See, some of this is in San Francisco, some of this is technically San Mateo County. And this train track here more or less still exists too. It goes along the water here still. This would be basically where 101 is now. This general area would be the Bayshore Freeway. But what I found interesting here is this courtyard. I find this very interesting. There seems to be some type of hall. Let's zoom in a little bit more here. You see how there's this almost like a wall, like a crater. You got a giant hole that they built in here. You know, we see the train tunnels here. Those are still kind of there, more or less. And then, yeah, we see the houses, but then we also see, you know, just these crazy looking big towers here. And we see the Tartarian influence here, and here, 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 and here. You know, and then we see the smaller residences, but then we still have these Tartarian. Now, when you look at a map, if you look at an old map of Tartaria, or what is present-day Mongolia, you see the same kinds of buildings. You see the same kinds of architecture, and almost the same kind of artwork depicting them. Here we see another large outdoor courtyard here. Here we see how big and expansive and crowded the harbors were. You know, there was a lot going on. Here we see depictions of people, carriages, you know, and the interesting thing is that I was able to find the photograph and this map that, like I said, more or less kind of match up, actually back each other up. They kind of corroborate each other's stories here, because we see a lot of the same structures. what we didn't see in the photograph is so much of this farmland here. But what's interesting about this farmland is you see this intricate kind of pattern here, and then they have an arena out here, and then this is Golden Gate Park, or the beginnings of it, as you can see, because present-day Golden Gate Park does extend from the ocean inward here. So this must be the beginning of Golden Gate Park. It has to be. That's the only thing that makes sense. This is Ocean Beach. This would be where the Sutro Bathhouse ruins are now, where the Sutro Bathhouse was. This is essentially Gary. This would be like Gary Street here. It just doesn't connect like it does now. Yeah, this is a very fascinating map here. And then we have this thing out here, whatever this is, if somebody knows, then the Golden Gate Bridge, wasn't there yet. So it would have been, I guess it would have been somewhere around here. So it would have been this general area over here where these ships are. So then we have some more industry. This is a very interesting map. I could spend just as much time looking at this map as I could the previous photograph. And like I said, it's interesting to see how this area was already starting to be built out. Let's see here. And then over yonder, it's really fascinating. This is Market Street here. This is what's now called Market Street. And we go up here. This would be the Twin Peaks area here. Present day. Yeah, this would be like I said, this is kind of the outlying area still. But there was Mount Davidson, the cross. The cross is still there. Let's zoom in on that actually. So this is Mount Davidson. And just look how built out, how dense it was in 1878, when everybody was supposed to be out looking for gold. But they still managed to build this all out. And like I said, it's a darn shame that this didn't survive, because they look like a beautiful city. It's really fascinating stuff here. Just how built out it was. And like I said, some of these mysterious buildings here with Tartarian influence or Tartarian design. Yeah, I mean, it's a strong possibility that these things were covered in mud, and then it was worth building all this other stuff around it. But the focal points were these massive structures. I mean, this is a great illustration here. This was produced by a great artist at the time here, because the meticulous detail. I mean, this is just, well, like I said, I don't want to obsess on it too much, but it is very, very interesting, and I hope I am able to come across more maps and illustrations like this, because this really just says it all right here as to what was going on. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. This is just too much construction for 30 years with simple tools and horses and donkeys. I mean, people must have been working. Let's just go with the official narrative that people were working around the clock, non-stop, every single minute of every single hour of every single day to get close to this, and to make it so structurally sound and I mean, just these churches alone, would take years and years to build. And then we have all these other buildings and the government buildings and this thing and that thing and the whole damn 9 yards here. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.